In an article published by Boxing News 24, you know, the publication that likes to take swipes at fighters, particularly melanated fighters. Jermell Charlo, former undisputed king, is in a position where it is thought his return to the ring is a fading star's last attempt to cash in, according to Sergio Mora. You see, I don't ordinarily go for articles like this, but I gotta put it out there because I want people to understand. Regardless of what you may think of what Jermell Charlo is as a person, in the sport of boxing, he is destined for the Hall of Fame for becoming the first four-belt era super welterweight champion. And though he tried his bid at stepping up and taking on a tremendous challenge in Saul Canelo Alvarez at the super middleweight division, 2 divisions north of him, it was still a fighter who had accomplished very much prior to that attempt. And that's now 2 years old. So Charlo has stated that he wants to come back to the division where he reigned and take on each and every one of the noted fighters in the division. I take my hat off to him. But Sergio Mora and others who feel like he say that it's a shame that the 35-year-old Charlo wants to take his career seriously after 2 years out of the ring. It goes on to say, a champion who's lost 2 years. Mora says the former undisputed junior middleweight champion Charlo's fan base has drifted away, and he's lost 2 of his best years by not fighting. And Sergio believes that Jermell's rationale for returning is for the money. It's very convenient for people to speak of fighters' motivations. When I speak of them, I try to stick primarily to what's happening with them in and around the ring, not their personal lives. But I also talk about their psyche and where they may be psychologically in their careers. See, that's more important, but I never count fighters' pockets. Mora feels that Mel, with his recent call-outs, is calling out the wrong fighters. Sebastian Fundora, Terrence Crawford, Virgil Ortiz Jr., Jaron Boots Ennis, and his friend Errol Spence Jr. Mora goes on and says, according to this article in Boxing News 24, link will be in the description box. Even when he was still active, he would have had huge problems against those guys he's called out this week. Charlo, who's now 35 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw with 19 KOs, lost to Tony Harrison and was held to a draw against Brian Castellano in their first fight. The Canelo payday effect on his career. Mora goes on to state, Jermell Charlo, he's in his mid-30s and finally wants to take his career seriously and come back. It's a shame because he had so much that he could have given to boxing. This man fought Canelo and hasn't fought since, says Mora to DAZN, talking about the former undisputed junior middleweight champion Jermell Charlo. He still held 3 of his 154-pound titles after his loss to Canelo on September 30th, 2023. He could have defended his IBF, WBA, and WBC junior middleweight titles. The decision to stop fighting resulted in those titles being stripped one by one. Inactivity has plagued his career. Now, just like other fighters like Andy Ruiz and Adrian Broner, said Mora. They want to come back in their mid-30s. And people forgot about them. Their heyday is gone. Their shine is off. The success that Jermell had before he stopped fighting will be difficult to replicate at 35. He's gotten older, and the fighters that are competing now are arguably more talented than his main competition during his active years at 154. Now, the rest of the article you can read on your own, but I'm going to give my take on this. Yes, I am very critical of Mel Charlo and the way that I felt that he threw his legacy away by trying that move against Charlo without one time defending his status as the undisputed champion at super welterweight. You see, when a fighter has a lofty status of that, he needs to cement the status by at least defending the position a couple of times. There was a built-in strong super fight for him with a possibility of facing undisputed welterweight champion at the time, Terrence Bud Crawford, who defeated his friend Errol Spence. Now, he shucked that to go and face Canelo, as I stated before, 2 divisions north of his position as super welter. The Crawford fight would have been meaningful and had its own built-in story and build-up. This was more of a bad decision by Mel than anything else. And he'll only have himself to blame for this at the end of the day when his career is done. But there still is something about being a fighter. And if he wants to come back and fight these contemporaries, I don't believe the payday is the major factor now. He may miss the limelight. He may have had a chance to get his body back where it needs to be to compete at super welterweight, having put on that additional weight just to fight and campaign at a higher division where it's obvious that his bone structure and density isn't that of his brothers. So, also watching belts change hands and seeing the new blood get shuffled into the mix, he may feel that eye of the tiger. Who knows? I could never write that off of him. Only his performance would be revealing. But Mora should know more than the average boxing follower because he's a former fighter himself. Sometimes when these former fighters, particularly when they are of a specific ethnic background and they don't like to give credit to melanated fighters, they show their bias with their comments and also their perspectives, as if they don't understand themselves of what fighters go through. There are current fighters who are still in active careers who have almost gone every bit the distance of time out of the ring that Mel Charlo has spent away, as well as fighters who have spent a little bit more. Anthony Joshua, for one, since his loss to Daniel Dubois, has been out of the ring for almost, 17 months or so? Does Joshua want to return to the ring and fight? Or does he just kind of want to fade into oblivion? Or is he looking for a soft touch that he can make a big bag and an easy victory with? You see, sometimes you have to look at things for what they are and call people for who they truly are. Mel Charlo busted his chops to accomplish what he did as super welterweight. And you could see by when he lost that decision to Tony Harrison how it affected him, because he was totally all in with his career and his position at the time. So to dismiss him as a guy who is just looking for the money is far sight shorted, I should say, because this is not someone who strikes me like that. Although I do feel that he was chasing a bag with the Canelo fight, because that was probably the maximum he could make. But there was still that Terrence Bud Crawford fight. And with a victory over Crawford, then to pursue Canelo, his bargaining status would have been even greater. But you see what I mean about making decisions? It's very difficult to consider someone when you haven't looked at all angles and you leave your particular prejudices and biases out of the equation. Mel Charlo is still an accomplished fighter to be respected until someone retires him, Sergio Mora. Then you might want to just be quiet and continue on with the poor commentary that you offer when you're on the airwaves. This is Stormy B Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. The link for this article is in the description box. Take a look at it. Read it through for yourself. See the bias, the bigotry, and the prejudice behind what's being stated. Let me know what your thoughts are. And do you think Charlo can come back and reclaim glory? Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.